The American Revolution nearly came to a bad end barely a year after it began. By the early summer of 1776, more than 12,000 American soldiers had bivouacked in Little New York City, which was to become the war's central battlefront after Britain evacuated Boston that spring. For months, the troops and civilian residents toiled with picks and shovels to fortify the town, summoned by fife and drum to work gangs known as Diggers Inn. Streets along the waterfront were barricaded, and artillery redoubts built around the island of Manhattan and across the East River on Long Island, all overseen by General Washington after his arrival in late spring. And all for naught. Given that New York was set in an archipelago with almost 800 miles of waterfront, one of Washington's lieutenants observed that whoever commands the sea must command the town. And the British commanded the sea. On June 29, 1776, New York Bay suddenly filled up first with scores and then with hundreds of enemy ships as General William Howe's army arrived from temporary refuge in Halifax. Over the next few weeks, the force grew ever larger with the arrival of another fleet from Britain, commanded by Howe's brother, Admiral Richard Howe, and thousands of German mercenaries known generally as Hessians. They made camp on Staten Island and sent combat squadrons up the Hudson River. As Washington wrote to Congress, the amazing advantage the enemy derive from their ships and the command of the water keeps us in a state of constant perplexity and the most anxious conjecture. Conjecture ended on August 22nd, when more than 20,000 British and Hessian troops landed along the southwestern tip of Long Island in one of the most adroit amphibious operations of the 18th century. After gathering themselves for several days on the flatlands, General Howe's troops attacked American fortifications near the village of Brooklyn on August 27th, feinting at the rebel right and center defenses, then deftly outflanking the American left in a brilliant night march. This plan succeeded even beyond our expectation, a British general wrote, for we were on their flank and in their rear before they knew what we were about. Washington's line collapsed with thousands running for their lives. The largest battle of the entire Revolution turned into a rout. Only a bold nighttime evacuation in the fog across the East River from Brooklyn to Manhattan saved the army from obliteration. All of Long Island had been lost for over 7 years, as it turned out. The rest of the New York campaign wouldn't go much better for the Americans. The Howe brothers landed their forces on Manhattan at Kips Bay on September 15th, capturing New York City and much of that island in hours. The rebels fought bravely in a skirmish at Harlem Heights the next day, but eventually abandoned most of Manhattan for Westchester County to the north, when the British in October executed another flanking maneuver up the East River and into Long Island Sound, leading to a sharp battle at White Plains. The only acreage on Manhattan left to the Americans was at Fort Washington, near today's George Washington Bridge. And on November 16, 1776, General Howe pounced on that garrison with an attack from 3 directions. The rebel defenses were poorly designed and undermanned, and nearly 3,000 men were captured at a cost of 458 British casualties. General Washington watched helplessly through his telescope from across the Hudson in New Jersey, having been utterly out-generaled. This is a most unfortunate affair and has given me great mortification, the Commander-in-Chief wrote his brother. He added, I am wearied almost to death with the retrograde motion of things. More mortification and more retrograde motion would follow. 4 days later, the British crossed the Hudson and captured Fort Lee, the main American encampment in North Jersey. The paltry remnant of the Continental Army, barely 3,000 men under Washington's direct command, trudged south toward Trenton. Washington and his generals had nearly lost the war several times in the past several months, through miscalculation, misfortune, imprudence, and deficient military skills. Now annihilation threatened them again.
On sale now, The British Are Coming. Rick Atkinson's epic story of the American Revolution. Available from the shops at Mount Vernon or wherever books are sold.